Greetings! The Sound is proud to announce a brand new course coming next year, Homo Economicus, an engineering course that will teach you how to better understand your users as well as yourself using bounded rationality. What does that phrase mean? Why is it so important? Well, here are my teammates Mariana and Ali on why.
Let's begin with bounded rationality as an economic principle. This principle was coined by Herbert Simon. The Nobel Prize winner was an economist, political scientist, and cognitive psychologist.
I got interested in how people make decisions, how they make choices. That's what we spend an awful lot of our lives doing. Shall we go down this road? Shall we go down that road? Shall we buy this? Shall we buy that?
One of his best-known works is his theory on bounded rationality, where he challenges the presumed assumptions of absolute or perfect human rationality. This is known as Homo economicus, the idea that an individual has complete knowledge of the information needed to make a choice. This was later discovered as a flawed perspective, with cognitively limiting agents skewing the concept of perfect rationality. As stated by Simon, his idea was to replace this previous notion of human rationality to one that is adaptable with respect to an individual's access to information and computational capacities. This is also with respect to the time constraints faced in our everyday lives. That being said, it is one of the core psychological foundations of behavioral economics and the assumption of heuristics.
Herbert Simon was skeptical about how neoclassical economy could accurately reflect the actual behavior of people. Simon's best-known metaphor about bounded rationality is human rational behavior, and the rational behavior of all physical symbol systems is shaped by scissors, whose two blades are the structure of task environments and the computational capabilities of the actor. In other words, his scissors metaphor means that the real behavior and decision-making is the product of how familiar the individual is to the environment and how capable the individual is in perceiving the aspects of the deal. Most of the consumers don't have sufficient information about the product at the time of purchase. Hence, both the buyer and the seller need to compensate by satisfying an optimal solution for both sides. In the ant simulation that I'm running, you can see that as the ants get more familiar with their new environment, their behavior would be more predictable, and they can take the food to their homes in a quicker way. The ants' computational capabilities remains the same, but they leave a pheromone trail behind that would make the other ants familiarized with their environment. Hence, they become better decision makers. Going back to Simon's scissors metaphor, one blade represents the organism's limitation, and the other blade represents the structure of the environment. Exactly like how the blades of scissors need to meet at a point to cut, the adaptive rationality is bounded.
But wait, this theory sounds important and all, but it feels better suited to economics or maybe psychology. How does it help us as engineering students? Well, it can be a lot more useful than it might seem to be at first glance. Here's Sharon and Avantika on why exactly.
Now, let's talk about bounded rationality in engineering economics. Bounded rationality can also be considered by engineers and their users. As previously mentioned, bounded rationality deals with the limitations to make fully informed decisions. In the engineering design process, inventors, creators, and engineers often have neither the resources nor the information to accurately predict the outcome of their design. Hence, their decisions could lead to unintended results and side effects due to this intrinsic inability to make precise, rational decisions. As for the customer perspective, users are frequently not accurately informed of the details pertaining to the products of engineering that they use. For example, someone trying to decide between an iPhone or a Samsung might not know about the processing parts used and would instead choose one based purely on personal preference, like appearance or individual history with the brand. Next, some few differences between classical economics and engineering economics when it comes to bounded rationality. While classical economics deals with user rationale of a product, bounded rationality in engineering economics is more focused on the thought processes of the actual engineers and inventors during the design process of the product. Also, as mentioned before, a factor contributing to why users do not make rational decisions is the lack of information. This then leads to consumers making a decision that will simply satisfies their needs. But in terms of engineering economics, this can be considered as an uncertainty. engineers might have some available information but intrinsically unable to rationally predict the outcome of their process. Therefore, we consider the outcome of their design an uncertainty.
Engineers bear a great responsibility in the real world, but they are humans, meaning they too are rationally bound. These limitations can come with its own cost. Such was the case with the Titanic. The steel used to build the Titanic was the best at the time, but still inferior to modern-day steel. As a result, there was no bending or deformation when the ship's hull hit the iceberg. It just shattered. This limited information would later be the main cause of why the ship sunk. The ship's build was also clouded by false perceptions. The 16 watertight compartments underneath the ship were thought to be sufficient to manage water leakage, but at the time of sinking, when 6 of the compartments were sealed off, it only made the ship pitch forward and accelerate the sinking process. False perceptions were mainly a result of advertising and a larger competition that was between 2 of the chief ship lines at the time, Cunard and White Star. Cunard had ships that were known for its speeds. To counter that, White Star thought to build ships that would center on comfort and luxury alone, even at the cost of flawed design. The problem here is not whether the tragedy could have been averted, but how the magnitude of the tragedy could have been lessened had our engineers not been rationally bound when designing the ship. Being rationally bound is inevitable, but there are instances where tragedies can be avoided despite unforeseen circumstances. Such is the story of the miracle on the Hudson. To put it simply, within 2 minutes of takeoff, US Airways Flight 1549 was hit by a flock of geese. This resulted in both engines being damaged and a loss of thrust. Captain Sully Sullenberger realized they wouldn't be able to make it back to the airport and made the decision to land the plane in the Hudson River. Passengers and crew then exited the plane and onto its wings before help arrived. Not one person died from the incident. There are many takeaways here, specifically ones that help engineers counter being rationally bound. First, in any system, there must be a mix between automation and user control. Airlines have automation that help pilots during the flight, but pilots still retain control over critical functions. This allowed Captain Sully to make his decision and execute it. Secondly, development and user training are heavily simulated within the airline industry. As a result, pilots are trained to remain calm and adapt to any situation, even if it is unforeseen. And finally, when creating a system, create a good user interface where users develop situational awareness. All the passengers and crew had a good sense of mind to know what actions must be taken for a good outcome, in this case, trusting their captain. A system cannot be perfect, engineers cannot be perfect, but measures can be taken to reduce loss and to counter the flaws in any system. This is what engineers must focus on despite their bounded rationality.
So you see, we as engineers are given a lot of responsibility to build and carry out large-scale projects. Thus, it's all the more important that we understand our personal limitations and those of our users, because just one simple misunderstanding can cost real human lives. Enrollment in Homo economicus starts in June of next year. This video could not have been made possible without the talent and effort of Mariana, Ali, Sharon, and Avantika. It was quite the pleasure to put this project together with such a determined team, and I could not have chosen anyone better. Thank you all for watching.